Hi, it's Bridget again, back with Life on Spectrum. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about my son's story and how he was finally diagnosed. First off, his name's Brian. And if you remember from my introduction, he is now 22 years old and it's December of 2016. So I have been through the whole gamut with my son. But it did not start off well, and it started off a little frustrating. And I'm sure most of you, if you are watching this, know someone or you're going through the same situation. So here's our little story. When my son was born, I was very young. I was 19. However, a lot of people thought maybe that is why he had autism. I would like to say that usually age doesn't have too much to do with it. I truly believe, with all the research I have read, that it is a genetic disorder. However, I know there's still going to be those people out there that are going to argue with me. However, I would like to tell you that my father, who I love dearly, used to rock as a child himself. And rocking is usually one of those symbols or situations that for sensory deprivation that a lot of autistic students do. I also have a cousin on my father's side that is on the autism spectrum. He's very intelligent, but his social skills have always been quite poor. And he still lives with mom, but that's another story. I'd also like to say that my son's father is also, I think, on the spectrum. Of course, most of these people were never diagnosed because of their age. However, he has some of the tendencies. A lot of times he's not social, he's very intelligent. And by the way, he builds most of your bridges and actually builds some of the dams for our civil government. So he is very intelligent, but they all have symbols or situations that would lead you to believe that they have autism. But of course, when I was 19, I didn't know any of this situation. So when my son was born, everybody told me he was so smart. There's milestones that we know about when children are born. My son was actually meeting all those milestones until crawling. He was cooing, he was cawing, he was doing all those things, and then of course he was kind of creeping. And one day he just decided to stand. He totally bypassed crawling whatsoever. And of course, most of the people in my family are like, he's gonna be brilliant, he's gonna be a genius. However, it should have been a sign for me. And most pediatricians nowadays think that that is. Of course, my pediatrician at the time is like, oh, just let him be, let's see how he goes. Well, after he started pulling himself up, he actually started saying a lot of different sounds. His actual first word was cookie, not ma, not pa, it was cookie. And he was actually starting to say different phrases, especially around food. But then all of a sudden, after he started crawling, after he walked, he then began to crawl. And then he would not walk again. And around 1 year old, he stopped everything. He didn't really crawl, he just sat there and cried. He rolled over, but he wouldn't talk. Nothing would happen. Now, a lot of people would say that that's because he had his immunizations. But I truly believe it's because if you do the research on the brain, at around 1 year, that's when the brain actually starts to develop on its own. And that's when I think the autism actually kicks in. There's research out there, so you can go look it up and you can back me up if you would like, but that's my personal belief. I really don't think it's immunizations. I think it just is around that time period. Others can argue with me and that's okay, but that's my son's story. But you have to remember, this was 1994 and 1995, around that time period. Autism was not heard of. It was only in textbooks for maybe a paragraph and no much more than that. Once in a while, if you looked on the internet then, which was very small and meek at the time, there might have been a phrase here or a sentence there, but there was not much knowledge. And as far as books or textbooks are concerned, the only one, of course, was Dr. Asperger. So at about 1, I was really concerned. And at that time, pediatricians don't have checklists. He just kept telling me, it will be okay. He's a boy. He'll get through it. It's going to be okay. But that wasn't good enough for me. That's when I started my search. And I actually joined my university and I went for special education. And I was driven to figure out what was going on with my son. And that started not only my career, but my advocate and also becoming a true mom for somebody on the spectrum. It not only took me just that 1 year, it took me 2.5, 3 years to graduate from college, and I was still trying to figure out exactly who could diagnose my son and get him the help he needed. It took me 6 years in total. He was finally diagnosed at the age of 6, but not with autism. He was diagnosed with ODD and PDD-NOS. What that means is oppositional defiant disorder, and pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified. And the reason? The federal law did not recognize autism as a disability. That became my advocate. I actually started writing letters and trying to find different support groups online. And that is one of the reasons why I'm still strong in support of trying to figure out why our students are diagnosed with autism. But my son, that was how long it took me to get him diagnosed. And through the next few series and different topics, I'll continue my discussion on my son and the life on spectrum. Thanks for watching that episode, and make sure you come back and join us again for upcoming videos. They'll be uploaded almost on a daily basis. Also, if you really enjoyed us, like us below, or even leave a comment for us to respond back to. And if for all of you that are really involved in the Life on Spectrum, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We appreciate you. We hope that this is worthwhile for you, and we'll see you next time on Life on Spectrum.